Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
Touchdown, Washington!
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Steelskins Show, a show hosted by one diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan and one diehard Washington Redskins fan. From game recaps, game previews, news headlines, analysis, opinions, and all kinds of other stuff, we've got you covered on all things Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins. My name's Patrick. I'm the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers here on the show.
I'm Chris. I'm the voice of the Washington Redskins and repping the Atlanta Braves. Old school 72, baby.
We'll let him have this moment.
Thanks.
Just let him have it, YouTube. Be nice to him in the comments.
Thanks, man.
Let him have it. Chris, well, first off, how do you like the new studio? Well, it's not the new studio, but it's a little less biased this week.
Awesome.
We just had this, and now we've got a nice little Redskin pennant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the pennant's awesome.
Yeah, pennant's pretty cool. Because, I've had, we got like 4 different Steelers things on the wall. Felt a little bad about that, so went on the Amazon, picked up a little Redskins pennant.
Little swag.
Little swag. Also, I figured instead of maybe doing a show, we could just play with fidget spinners the entire episode.
You want to?
What do you think?
Let's do it.
I got one. I finally got one.
You got 2 now, right?
I've got 3 now. I've got 3.
Okay. What has my son done? Because my son Chet's the one that brought his down and showed you, and I think you just took it from there.
Well, he showed me, and from that moment playing with it, I was like, all right, this thing's pretty cool, but I still didn't go and buy one.
No.
So I then, before we went on vacation the week before, I actually called Dad. I'm like, Dad, if it's not too much trouble, these things are cheap. Can you run in Flowland, maybe pick me one up?
You sent our dad to a head shop.
Dad went to Flowland. Our dad went to Flowland and picked me up a fidget spinner. God bless him. Picked me up one.
I go in there just from time to time because, Casey and I skated.
Yeah.
And,
that's right, bro.
And so
that's right, bro.
We went in there one time when they weren't in the area they're in now. They were in Southern Pines.
Right.
And they had a couple of vintage boards, like a Gator Rogalski, which he skated for Vision back in the day. They had a Christian Asoy Hammerhead. So I was like, dude, this is awesome. And this guy was just sitting there watching me behind the counter. He goes, dude, my generation owes your generation a debt of thanks, man. Thanks. And I was just like, no problem, man.
No problem, man.
Look
Got
at me.
you, bro.
Look at me. You can tell I'm still into it.
I still skate.
I still skate.
You still skate, bro?
Yeah. But, yeah, I go in there from time to time just to kind of see
what's up. See what they've done to with your art.
Yeah, what's funny is stuff comes back around. Wider boards are kind of coming back in a little bit.
Now, was longboarding a thing back in you guys' time, or is that what we're now calling longboarding? Because I know longboarding is like the longer, slimmer boards.
Yeah, I mean, you had some cruisers back in the day. Yeah, I mean, longboard's always been around, but there was a time like when Casey and I skated. It was the wider board, concave had just kind of come in. But then it began to transition into like thinner boards, double tail, more of a street skate type board. But now you're starting to see if it looks like just from going in some skate shops, it looks like bigger boards are starting to roll back in. But it's really funny because OJs, they were big back in the day. The wheels, OJ2s were big. That was sort of the wheel to have. I skated Sims for a while. And then I had some Powell Rat Bones. That was my favorite wheel.
Ah. I was never much of a skater, man.
And
I was the gamer. Still am the gamer. That's all I did as a kid.
But it's just kind of cool to go in there and just see what's there.
Yeah.
And every now and again, they'll have some Powell boards, the Ripper, see that, and I think you can still get the Powell Brigade type boards, Lance Mountain, Caballero.
Okay. All right. I have known you my entire life. I knew you skated, but I didn't know that it was on this level. I mean, you just ripped out like 20 different models of a skateboard. I didn't. We should start a skating podcast.
We were. I'm so far out of it. What's bizarre, man, is what they call tricks now. Like when we were growing up, you see the guys do some of the stuff that we were doing back then, in the late 80s, and it's a completely different name. So I'm totally out of date on what stuff's called, I can't. I'm definitely a dinosaur, but we had a good time doing it.
Yeah.
We had a real good time doing it.
My brother, the Dirthead.
My favorite board was a Monty Nolder Ramp Edition. Skated the fire out of that board. It broke. I skated it for so long it finally broke.
Sorry, dude.
That was a sad day because I never found another board like it, and I went through like 3 more after that and didn't find
didn't
anything.
Capture the magic like the other one. Man,
no, it was kind of sad. It was a Schmidt Sticks board. I don't even think Schmidt's around anymore.
Love those. Were you more of a now? If you were a skater, that means you had to wear skating shoes.
Yeah.
Were you a DC guy or a Vans guy?
DC wasn't around back in the day.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So DC is my generation.
I was Airwalk all the way.
I've never heard of it. Were Vans around back then? I feel like Vans have been around forever.
Yeah. Vans were awesome. Airwalk came out, and they were my favorite skate shoe. Case was a Vans guy.
I love Vans.
Case was a Vans guy. I loved Vision Street. I mean, I loved the Airwalk. In fact, we had a black suede pair that had had a big Velcro flap you put over the laces and stuff, so your laces wouldn't get caught up in your wheels or anything. It's pretty cool.
That actually happened to people?
I guess it could. They were just making sure it didn't.
What a bad thing to happen.
But we had that. Vision Streetwear came out with some. Really, they looked good, but they were really uncomfortable shoes. Not good shoes to wear. I didn't think. So we wore those. Yeah, we were into it, dude. We had the whole Jimmy's, Gotcha, Quicksilver wardrobe.
You were a bro.
I mean, we were just full on, man. Mom and Dad rolled with it. They, in fact, when we moved into the house that you're in, Dad bought a half pipe, which if you don't know what that is, that's huge. He found this guy in Southern Pines that was selling his kid's half pipe. And so this is, in other words, folks, if you don't know what a half pipe is, it was half of a pipe. I mean, it was huge. I can't remember the dimensions on it, but had good transition on it and had about a foot of vert, which is right there at the top of transition.
Foot of vert, okay.
Had about a foot of vert, had a couple of roll index, but we cut that thing in 4 pieces. I think me, Casey, my dad, Papa Murray. Somehow.
So Grandpa was in on it too.
Oh yeah, man. We took a sawzall of that thing, and then we brought it back here, and put it together.
Dude. So you were a hardcore.
Now in the interest of full disclosure, I didn't skate that thing. I was terrified of it.
And I'm sure Casey did.
Casey did.
I bet Casey did.
I got a severe concussion from about a 4-foot street ramp.
Oh.
We were living down in South Carolina. I dropped in on it, and everything was going fine. Rolled out into the street, all happy, and hit a rock with my wheel.
And you had like a legit concussion.
I kept going and just hit my cheek. I think it knocked me out a little bit. Anyway, ended up in the emergency room, puking my guts out. Yeah, that was a bad one.
Did you know your dad, Chet, our camera guy just walked in. Chet, I didn't know your dad was a skater, dude. I mean, like, I knew he skated, but did you know the level at which he skated?
Now, I didn't say I was good. Case was good.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Case was a lot better than I was.
I mean, he just ripped off the name of like 20 boards. I just enjoyed it. Wow.
I just had fun doing it.
Well, see, it's kind of funny. Joe bought a board back when it was just me and Joe living at home after you guys moved out. Joe bought a skateboard and never used it in a day in his life. And then when I asked him, I'm like, dude, why don't you use a skateboard? He's like, well, because we live on a dirt road. I was like, then why did you buy it? So we had a skateboard sitting around for a while. I never really thought to use it. Like I said, I was always playing games. 64, PS2. I'm still gaming. I bought a PS4 Pro yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
4K gaming. Wow. It's good stuff. It's really good. Well, folks, this is a show about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins. Promise it's not about skateboarding. Seriously, man, if we want to start a separate skateboarding podcast, that was impressive stuff. I'm actually really impressed right now. Like, wow, that was pretty cool. But yes, we kind of still are in the slow period. OTAs are over. Mandatory minicamp has been going on. I guess just the next thing is training camp on the horizon, which starts when?
Well, it's about 6 weeks now.
6 weeks, that's right.
Yeah, about 6 weeks.
But we do have a couple of news items for you people today concerning Steelers and the Redskins.
Okay, well, I'll take my shot at playing host right now.
Do it.
So,
Patrick,
the Pittsburgh Steelers have come out of their OTAs, but there's been a couple of different issues. So I want you, number one, walk us through what's going on with Le'Veon Bell right now, and then maybe what you think is going to happen by the July 15th deadline.
Right.
And then we'll hit Villanueva.
Alejandro Villenueva, yes.
Let's hit Le'Veon. Take us through the situation.
Yeah, like you said, we've kind of got two players who are, playing with some contract situations right now, haven't signed their tenders, and I guess we'll start with Bell. The first thing I'm going to say before I start is everybody calm down. Everybody just needs to chill out. I don't know if it is, and it's probably a little bit of both. I don't know if it's just really annoying fans who just don't know how to just calm down, or if it's the fact that we're in that period of time where everything has to be a story because there's nothing else to talk about.
Oh, yeah, we live there if you're a Skins fan.
And a lot of that is I think that's really what's going on here mostly. It's just that the NFL's got nothing to do, so let's chalk everything up. Folks, what's going on with Le'Veon Bell is not a big deal whatsoever. He did not attend OTAs at all. He has been absent from the mandatory 3-day minicamp, which has been going on. And what I kind of want to do here tonight is calm everybody down. It's not a big deal. I do think the long-term deal is going to get done. We'll play with some scenarios with that here in a second. But here's the first thing I want to start off with. Minicamp, Chris, is mandatory for players under contract.
Right.
Folks, Le'Veon Bell is not under contract right now. Now, the Steelers back in March, you remember, offered him, well, they franchise tagged him, but he has not signed
his tender. That's
he
right.
has not signed the tender.
Because once you sign the tender, you're on the hook.
Oh, you have to go. Yeah. And if you don't go, I believe there is a fine if you don't return mandatory minicamp.
About $80,000 per day that you miss in that minicamp, I think.
So if you are under contract, you have to attend or there are consequences. Le'Veon Bell's not under contract, so therefore he has zero obligation to be at minicamp, first of all. The next narrative I guess we have to tackle is because of that, and a lot of this is because of, you have two different situations with Alejandro Villanueva and Le'Veon Bell. In Villanueva, you got a guy who has not signed his tender, but he is showing up. He is going to OTAs. He is going to minicamp. And people look at that and go, wow, the honor, the integrity. Why can't Le'Veon Bell be like that? He hates the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's not a team guy. And it's like I said, just couldn't be more of a silly narrative in my opinion. Folks, you do understand that Le'Veon Bell is still recovering from a groin injury, correct? That he did have surgery on just back a couple of months ago. And if you know anything about the National Football League, if you know anything about injuries and surgeries, the groin injury, Chris, is one of the most, it's a very serious injury.
Oh.
I mean, the groin injury really is one of those injuries. We talk about the ACLs, the MCLs, the Achilles, but the groin is a big one. I mean, just look at Bud Dupree, folks. Bud Dupree had a groin injury and didn't get on the field until the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's a big deal because it's the kind of injury that, as you're going through the recovery process, it's not hard to have a setback.
Yes, absolutely. It's a soft tissue injury.
Pull it, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, and I'll ask the viewers, and I'll ask you, Chris. Let's just say that Le'Veon Bell did attend OTAs. Let's just say that he did go to the mandatory minicamp. What capacity do you think he would participate?
Yeah.
None. Yeah. Little to none.
But let's be very clear. I mean, like you said, he does not have a signed tender, so there's absolutely...
No, he doesn't have to go.
He doesn't have to go. Now, I guess Steeler fans want him to sign the tender and show up.
And I guess that's part two of the discussion we have. The reason he has not signed the tender, everyone, is because he's trying to get a long-term deal worked out. So, now, Mike Florio, in one of his more lucid moments, which you say sometimes, because, like I said, Pro Football Talk is one of those outfits where you really just don't ever know what's going to come out of there. But Florio wrote a pretty compelling article about this the other day, and he said something that I do think was true. He said, is Bell probably being absent to give himself leverage for a long-term deal? Probably. Probably. Bell probably is giving the Steelers a little extra motivation to get him that long-term deal quicker. But guess what, guys? It's not like we haven't seen that before. You know, how many times have you seen a player not go to OTAs and maybe skip the minicamp because they're trying to get a long-term deal? You see that all the time. But with Bell, you have that combined with the fact that he is legitimately still healing from a surgery. Todd Haley, maybe this will calm all you hand-wringers down. Todd Haley was interviewed today, as a matter of fact, about it. You know what he said? You know what his direct answer was to it? He said, I know what Le'Veon Bell can do. He said, we're aware of his talent. He enters the season at a high level. He said, we expect nothing less, and he is recovering from his surgery. Right there, you had an offensive coordinator right there saying he's recovering from a surgery. Not to mention, Le'Veon Bell, does he not kind of have an injury history? As great as he is, you had the knee injury, you had the hamstring, now you've got the groin, he had the concussion very early in his career. He's great, but he kind of has proven himself to be a little injury-prone at times.
And let me ask you this.
So what do you want to salvage as much as possible?
That's the thing, and let me ask you this, Patrick, because you watched it unfold. But last year he was suspended for
the first four.
First three
games.
Okay, that's right. First 3 games. But he came back and seemed to slide right in.
Yes.
So I guess my thought is he's the type of guy that doesn't seem to have a ton of off-season reps.
That's exactly right.
For him to be effective once. I look at him as the kind of guy, look, just get me to the regular season with him.
Absolutely.
Let's just get to the regular season healthy, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah, and look, I already know the counter-argument, and I agree with you, but the counter-argument is going to be some do-gooder out there that says, well, it's about integrity, and, there's always something to improve on. Okay, I hear all that, but, folks, we know what Le'Veon Bell can do. Why wouldn't you? I look at this as he is recovering from a surgery, and why wouldn't you want to salvage him as much as humanly possible? And as for the deal, I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm not scared at all. A deal's going to get done. A deal is probably going to get done, folks. They have until July 15th.
Well, let me ask you this: so, what if the deal is not signed by July 15th?
Well, at that point, he has to play under the tender, 12.112.
That's what he's playing. And then there's a couple of dates that if he misses, then he'll just sit till the 10th game of the year. Is that right?
That's correct. But look, we already know that's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is, even if you shoot past July 15th,
right.
And I guess I'm speaking from some experience watching the Kirk Cousins thing, the kind of money, and I know running back is different than quarterback. Running backs want that long term,
right?
Because their window is much smaller than a quarterback.
Yes.
So, do you think if they get past July 15th, does this thing drag? Does Le'Veon Bell's side say, you know what, we're not playing on a 1-year deal? I'm not opening myself up for you to franchise me next year too, and we'll go through this thing.
Well, okay, so you just brought up something very interesting. On the last Steelskins show we did, you talked about Kirk Cousins. You are of the mind that a long-term deal still could get done, but let's just say that Cousins does play under his franchise tender.
Which I think he will.
Okay. But even if he does, he's still getting paid bank. Now, you then went on to say, let's just say next year the franchise tag gets slapped on him. It's something ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
35.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, let's just say Bell does have to play under the tender this year. He will gladly get franchise tag next season because it's going to go even higher, most likely.
So you think they'll adopt the Kirk Cousins?
I think
play for that.
It'll play out the same exact way. The same exact way, in my opinion. Now, here is where and it hasn't happened yet, so there's no need to get mad at Le'Veon Bell, but here's what I will say, and I hope Le'Veon Bell he and his side will be realistic about this. Chris, the franchise tender for a running back right now at Le'Veon Bell's position is 12.12. That is the highest in the National Football League right now. Regardless of what happens, he is going to be the highest paid back in the league.
Right.
So here's what I'm trying to say. I hope Le'Veon Bell and his side aren't looking at the Steelers going, we want 15, 16 million. Dude, come on, man. You are already you are already with 12.12, you are so far ahead of every other running back in this league. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Bell and his side might have to be realistic here a little bit. They want a long-term deal. Typically, long-term deals tend to give them more money than the franchise tag. That's the point. But what I'm saying is, man, you are already – I mean, the next highest paid back in the league is LaShawn McCoy, and he's averaging about $8 million a season.
I was going to say around 8.
$8 million, something like that. With just your tender, man, you are making 12.12. So Le'Veon Bell and his side might have to do some – they might have to be a little more realistic about this. Before you beg for 15 – because I've seen some articles out there saying he could get 15, 16 million. That's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to see. I think the Steelers I'm really interested in this for one reason, and that is all we've heard over the last really 4 seasons, basically, when I kind of remember it, and maybe a little bit before that, but it talks about, all the narrative is how the running back has been devalued, the running back position in terms of salary and earning power has been devalued from what it used to be when you had bell cow running backs. You paid them the money because they were the backbone of your team.
Yeah.
And the Steelers, by franchising Le'Veon Bell, have really kind of put themselves in a position where they're not devaluing the running back position.
No, not at all.
With this move. And he's not going to sign for less than the $12 million.
No, absolutely not. And he shouldn't.
That's the starting point. And that's what Kirk Cousins and his agent have said from the get-go. If you're willing to say that I'm worth $24 million for 1 year, then that, in effect, becomes the floor of a long-term deal.
Right.
We're not going lower than that just because you're offering a long-term deal.
Yeah.
And I don't think Le'Veon Bell is going to do that either. But my guess, I wonder if the Steelers felt like, look, let's tag him. That'll hold him. And then we could get him in a longer-term deal for less money, because that's what teams used to do.
Right.
Teams used the franchise tag as sort of a hold to keep their best player from going anywhere, and then they would dangle, okay, let's forget about the tender. Let's focus on a long-term deal.
Long-term deal, right.
And so we'll give you a couple million less than the tender, but it's in the name of a long-term deal.
Yeah.
And I think the NFL as a whole is working away from that model. And I think players are saying, look, okay, fine, you're going to franchise me. You've just created a floor.
Yeah. If this is the benchmark, then we can go higher.
Or we can stay in and around that number, but we're not going back.
No. We're not even slightly going back.
So I just wonder.
And you and I had a conversation about this several episodes ago. You know, when the market comes to you and says you're worth this much money, as a player, I don't blame you if you say, I want that number right there.
Well, there was a time.
I don't consider that being greedy or anything like that.
And growing up watching football in the 80s, and of course, I remember a lot of years pre-free agency. I grew up with sort of the old school idea that, man, you're playing a game, you're getting good money for it, you don't hold out.
Right.
But I think as I've gotten older and I've worked now out in the business world for 20 plus years, or almost about 30 years now, you understand a little bit from a person earning a salary standpoint that you constantly want to maximize your earning power.
Yes.
No matter what occupation you're in.
Absolutely.
And to add to all that, running backs are a type of is a player position that their lifespan in the NFL is much shorter.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not a bleeding heart. Football's a violent sport. That's just the way it is. That's the way it will always be.
Running backs take some of the worst workload, man.
But they take the brunt, and I'm telling you, you watch these guys, they get near 30, they begin to hit a wall.
Oh, yeah.
And so they have a very, very small window, and as the game continues to get faster, as the game continues to get more physical, that window is probably only going to shrink. So I don't have a problem with a guy trying to max out.
No, absolutely not.
On that little window he's got, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I guess the final thing I'll say before we move on to the next thing is I just don't think there's any reason to panic here. I don't think there's any reason to panic on twofold. First off, don't freak out because he wasn't at OTAs, that he didn't come to minicamp, and I wouldn't be scared that he's going to leave and not get a deal. Bell will, even if a long-term deal does not get done, I think Bell would be more than happy to play on just a short 1-year deal that pays him out the butt, then come into next year, franchise tag him, and that value goes up even more. Very much like what we've talked about with Kirk Cousins. Even if a long-term deal is not done, I think he'd be happy to do that too. Yeah,
I can't remember the percentage number that it goes up, but if you look at Cousins, it went from 19.9 up to 23.9, or about 24 million. So it went up basically $5 million. Well, if that tracks somewhere near, from a percentage standpoint, if that tracks near with Le'Veon's numbers, then they could jump up, like you said, above 15 million.
Yeah. And also, the other thing I think you need to take into account, guys, is do you not know your own football team? The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that don't usually play around with this kind of stuff.
Right, they get it done.
The Steelers have always been a let's get it done organization. We're not going to lollygag. And look, the Steelers don't typically do break the bank type of deals, but for certain players, they will do it. So I'm confident that a long-term deal gets done. We've got till July 15th. Even after July 15th, you still have options at that point too. But I think between now, which by the way, it is June 15th today, so you've still got 1 month before that deadline.
Yeah, that's true.
He's dealing with an injury. That's why he hasn't been there, and I do think a long-term deal gets done. So everybody just calm down.
Chill.
Bell's fine. Chill.
All right, so Alejandro Villenueva,
yes,
is another guy that is in a contract situation. Where are we there?
It's kind of similar to Bell's, but it's also very, very different. He is a exclusive rights free agent, and the tender that the Steelers brought to him was $615,000 for his exclusive rights tender. Now
right,
Villanueva,
so that's on the low end then.
Well, it's on the low end because for one, Villanueva is still kind of relatively new to the position. He hasn't played this for very long.
How many years has he been in the league?
He's been in the league for something like, he's been on the Steelers for 3 years.
Okay.
Or excuse me, 2. He's been on the Steelers for 2 years. Before that, he was kind of bouncing around from like tryouts and some practice squads.
Okay, was he an undrafted free agent?
He was undrafted, yeah.
All right, so that's why he's in this shape.
Okay. Right. If he were a Joe Thomas type of guy who got drafted first
or if he had been
round
like a second or third round pick,
he'd be getting paid out the butt.
He'd be up for a contract redo and
it'd probably be a multi-million contract, yeah.
Okay.
But because he is still, let's be honest, he is still kind of relatively new to the league, and he's also still kind of relatively new to the position as well. Now, having said all that, I already know what some of you are saying, so I'll say it for you. Folks, as we say here on the Steelskins show from time to time, tape don't lie. Alejandro Villanueva was one of the best left tackles in football last season. That's a fact. And you can laugh at me, you can make fun of me, all you other people out there. Go watch the tape. Mainly second half of the season. There were some struggles first half, but what he did second half of the season in the playoffs, he was playing like one of the best left tackles in football. By the way, Pro Football Focus even said that as well. And Pro Football Focus, it tends to be one of those things that you like it when they rate a player that you like, but any other time. But take that for what you will. Pro Football Focus. I don't remember what number he was on the list overall, but they did say second half of the season he was one of the top left tackles in football. So, like I said, take that for what you will. Pro Football Focus is kind of weird like that. But here's the thing with Villanueva. He has, and look, he's one of the classiest guys in football. We all know his amazing story about how he was an Army Ranger in Afghanistan. He was being interviewed about it recently, and he said, I served in Afghanistan and watched friends die around me, protecting me, and he said, I'm just glad to be here. So, now, some people have taken that and said, well, is it Villanueva being a little bit of a hypocrite? Because why doesn't he just sign the tender then? I'll tell you why. Because Villanueva has an agent that came to him and said, don't you sign that, I can get you more money. Duh. If you have the opportunity to get more money than what a team is offering you, like we just talked about, why wouldn't you do it? That this isn't Villanueva talking out of both sides of his mouth and being greedy. Villanueva far outperformed last season. Could he get more than $615,000 on that tender? Yeah. Yeah, he could. So, now, the difference between Villanueva and Bell, Villanueva's not injured, first of all, but he has been in OTAs. He has been in the mandatory camp, and he talked about how he wanted to be loyal to Pittsburgh, how Pittsburgh gave him everything, gave him an opportunity after he was cut by other teams and stuff like that. So, I mean, again, just very honorable and very classy of Villanueva. How do I feel about this? I think a deal gets done. In terms of what the numbers will be, that's a little more interesting. I mean, I'm the Steelers expert here, but I see Villanueva getting a short-term deal rather than a long-term deal. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they still have to wrap Le'Veon Bell up. There's still some other players who are up for contract extensions, like, say, Stephon Tuitt, Ryan Shazier.
I mean, the Pittsburgh's just laid massive amount of money out for Antonio Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get this Le'Veon Bell done, finished. Like you said, they've got
Stephon Tuitt is up for a deal. Ryan Shazier, who became one of the best inside linebackers in football. What do you do with him, Chris? What do you do with Ryan Shazier? Shazier's going to ask for some money. You already know he's going to ask for a pretty big paycheck. So,
well, what kind of timeline is there on Villanueva as far as signing the
tender? I believe it's the same date, July 15th. I believe. Or now, you're the expert. Does the exclusive rights free agent work differently?
We'll have to look at that.
I was under the impression that it was all the same, that July 15th was that deadline.
I can't. Maybe it is. I can't. See, the Redskins did that with Will Compton this year. A couple other guys they did it with, but those guys waited a little bit, but then they ended up signing. The $615,000, that's a lower round, and that may be where he's feeling. That may be where he and his agent are feeling a little bit insulted, because that's on the lower end.
And as a fan, after watching his tape last season, I go,
I'm kind of surprised, but they may be reading it that, hey, we're not in their long-term plans,
right? Well. And here is the other side to this, why a long-term deal might be the smart thing to do. Folks, left tackles don't grow on trees. That is one of the hardest positions to find in professional football. I was listening to a podcast on that the other day, and they made a fantastic point in saying that one of the hardest positions you will ever try to find is a left or right tackle.
Listen.
It's so hard to do. So because they don't grow on trees, maybe the Steelers do look at this and go, okay, we better lock this down fast.
Well, I mean, look, the Redskins right now have a lot of money invested between Trent Williams and the new deal that Moses Morgan signed a few weeks ago. But you just said it. If you find a couple of guys that can man the outside, you better pay them.
Yep.
Because we lived, if you're a Skins fan and you pulled for them after the John Jansen era, you saw how hard it was to find a right tackle.
Oh, it's tough.
It was just maddening every year to watch guys come in and out and just get killed.
Yeah.
And in the process, almost get your quarterback killed. So, I like Villanueva.
I love him. I mean, he's one of the great stories of football right now. But
I think at some point he probably signs that deal and just says, "Hey, I'll play it, and we'll go with it next. We'll deal with next year.
And that's an interesting point as well. One of the other things he said in that same interview was, "I came from nothing." He said, "I didn't have a rich upbringing." He said, $615,000 to me is money I don't even know what to do with.
Right.
Now, again, some people said, "Oh, but you're, again, why don't you just sign it then?" Once again, folks, he's got an agent who is trying to get him more money. Why wouldn't you try? It's has nothing to do with being greedy, nothing to do at all. So, what do I think will happen with Villanueva? Again, I honestly am kind of up in the air on this. I'm leaning more towards a short-term deal because of what we have to do with guys like Stephon Tuitt and Ryan Shazier, but I could also see long-term because of the scarceness of left tackles. But this will be an interesting one to watch. Honestly, I think me personally, the Villanueva deal is a little more interesting to me than the Bell deal. I'm confident that Bell's long-term deal gets done probably soon, next couple of weeks, I would say, before July 15th, I think. Villanueva, on the other hand, this one's going to be kind of fun to watch. So,
very good.
That kind of does it for me, Chris. We have got some things to discuss with your Redskins. A new kid's in town.
A new old kid.
A new old kid's in town. You found yourself a GM, Chris.
No, not a GM.
He's not, well,
Vice President of Player Personnel.
Oh, boy. Okay, whatever that means under the Bruce Allen regime. Right. Doug Williams, former Redskin quarterback, Super Bowl champion. If you're a Redskin fan, you know the name Doug Williams well. He is whatever you just said he is. Chris, is this a big deal? What does this mean? No deal at all? Because Allen's still running the show. What is this?
Okay, I'll start off by saying something I've thought about for the last couple of days.
Okay.
I'm glad we are not part. I'm glad our show is structured in a way that does not lend itself to the hot take movement that is ruining sports.
Yes, we try to be honest,
and we try to think about
we keep it
what
real.
we talk about before we go on the air. And I say that to get to my point. Yes, there is a side of this that Bruce Allen is still very much in charge of this front office. Mm-hmm. He is. This structure leaves him basically like he's the guy that if there is something that's got to be decided by one dude, it goes through Bruce Allen. And we knew that's how this would be structured.
Yeah.
But having had some time to think about this, I've become very impressed with Doug Williams' approach to this situation.
Okay.
Bruce Allen said they had 4 interviews, which is really rare. Generally, people don't get 4 interviews. But he made it very clear that Doug Williams laid out this plan. He did not want to be GM. And Doug Williams, in later interviews, said the exact same thing. He said, look, we had a GM here, and it didn't work out well.
Yeah.
He said, GMs have their fingers in everything. He said, I want to run my hallway. Jay's going to coach them. It's my job to get Jay players. That's what I want to do. So the key here for Doug Williams and his longevity is one thing. Well, it's 2 parts. Obviously, he's got to do well in the personnel department, but you've also got to manage Bruce Allen's baby-like ego. You got to manage this guy.
Okay, I'm just going to ask. So, what is his job?
Well, no, he is head of the personnel. In other words, what they did.
So he'll be in charge of like the drafts, signing players.
All right, here's how they structured it, and there's more than just him getting named. Eric Schaefer, who has been point man in contract negotiations for a long time now. He's been in the Redskins for about 14 years. He was promoted to vice president of football operations. Now, he said in an interview today with Danny and, 1067's show. He just walked out. It's not fun getting older. But he said on that show,
skating,
Grant and Danny. He said on 1067 that his job is basically going to stay the same. They just sort of gave his he's got a different title that kind of pulls in his duties under one title.
You guys are an interesting organization.
It is. Listen, it's a convoluted thing. But anyway, Eric Schaefer is going to be in charge. He as he always has been. He's point man. This guy's brilliant on contracts. Has been unbelievable.
Okay.
When you think of the amount of missteps we've had over the years with free agency, but he's always structured these things so the Redskins have never ended up in cap purgatory. We've never been in a situation where we've had to have massive cuts.
Right.
Now, it has not led us anywhere, but I'm just saying we've not had to pull a Dallas. There's been several teams over the years that have just stayed in cap purgatory for a couple of years.
You guys have managed your cap pretty well.
He's done an excellent job. Did a great job when $36 million got taken from us by Mara of the Giants.
Ooh.
I hate that guy. But anyway, I'm happy that he's still very much involved.
I like their
things.
daughter, Kate. She's okay.
Is that their daughter?
Kate Mara, yeah. That's her, bro. She's in on that family. Kate Mara, Steelers fan. Just want to throw that out there. She's kind of like a half. She's like a half.
Dude, I'm not going to be able to watch Shooter anymore, man. I don't even
or House of Cards.
I don't like the Maras. I'm glad she got killed in there.
A spoiler alert.
I'm kidding. If you hadn't watched season 1, that's what happens.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like to see her get killed. Anyway, I like Kate Mara. She's a good actress.
Kate Mara's cool.
Anyway, happy with that. Biggest surprise to me in the shuffle was Scott Campbell, who's been a scout for the Redskins for 16 years, and I think he's their best talent evaluator, was moved to Williams' old job, which is this nebulous personnel executive. And Kyle Smith has been promoted to director of college scouting. Now, Kyle Smith is the son of A.J. Smith, who is a big friend of Bruce Allen.
Oh, boy.
And he used to be the general manager of the San Diego Chargers. I think A.J. Smith was a horrible GM, but he's a good talent evaluator. Ran the Chargers into the ground. Now, his son apparently has grown up in the Redskins organization. He started as an intern. Apparently, he's a film junkie. He was head of their Southeast Regional Scouting under McLuhan. So he gets bumped to college personnel director. Scott Campbell goes to the nebulous title of personnel executive. Now, I don't have any idea.
Yeah,
I didn't know what Doug Williams did. I don't know if you just interject your thoughts, but anyway, I think Doug Williams has kind of set this thing up to survive past 2 years. I think what you
think he's given himself a lot of security.
Yes, I think he's seen what not to do where Bruce Allen's concerned. So I think that bodes well for our stability. Now, is Doug Williams going to be a good de facto
quote-unquote GM?
Yeah. I think so. I think he's got...
I mean, he knows the Redskins.
He's never been touted as a great personnel guy, as a great talent evaluator. But he's been involved in this end of things for 13 seasons. So I don't think this is just an honorary gig for him.
Not to mention, how long has he worked? I mean, other tan being the quarterback years ago, how long has he worked for the Redskins?
He came on with them. Oh goodness, I can't.
I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah. I think he's been there 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, so you're looking at a guy who's been in the organization.
Yes,
he has seen how things work.
He was in the personnel department with Tampa Bay before this. He's been a head coach on the high school level, the college level.
Yeah, so he's experienced.
So this guy knows football. He knows what a good football player looks like. And I think he has structured this front office in a way that gives him some security and stability, which that's what we've got to have.
Yeah.
Bruce Allen he's just kind of like that toothache that you don't want to do anything about. It's always going to be there. It doesn't matter what kind of temporary things you try to do. It's always going to come back. So you're always going to have to manage around Bruce Allen, I'm afraid. But I think having given this some thought, I think Williams set this thing up in a way that should provide some stability. I think he's had an opportunity to see how things work in the building, and he seems very focused on his department. He's not interested in running the entire show. He just wants to run the personnel department.
So he's looking at Bruce and going, Bruce, you stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine.
Well, he told everybody we're all just going to stay in our lanes. And look, from Bruce's standpoint, this is how this was always going to be. This was going to be an in-house deal.
But isn't that sad that that's the way it has to be, though? I mean,
yeah, listen. It is sad. It is sad, but unfortunately, it's reality.
I mean, it is what it is.
It's reality.
It's just, you have an organization right now where guys have to tippy-toe and walk on eggshells.
Yeah, and
and that's...
And don't make any mistake. There was a point where Bruce Allen could not take the success that Scott McLuhan was having. He couldn't do it.
And I got to be honest with you, dude, that's why I worry about Doug Williams. I worry about anybody who joins the Redskins front office and is doing pretty good.
But the whole idea here is that Williams has structured this thing in a way where not everything is going to be coming to him.
Right.
And it gives Bruce Allen enough room to crow about these being Redskin decisions, not McLuhan decisions.
Right,
so
right.
Part of this is semantics, part of it is reality, and part of it is here's our guy in Doug Williams trying to build something that will last more than 2 years and maneuver around Bruce Allen's ego.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't have a problem with it. I'm as interested as anybody to see how it runs this offseason and the draft. For all intents and purposes, was still very much McLuhan.
It was McLuhan's board.
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
So a lot of the legwork, a lot of the groundwork were by the scouts and McLuhan. So now, from this point going forward, Doug Williams is on the spot.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they're up to the task. The big winner again would, in my opinion, would be Kyle Smith, going from area scout to, college, the director of scouting. Mm-hmm. Very interested. Hopefully, Doug Williams mentioned that this structure is going to allow 2 or 3 guys during the college football cycle to be going to the top prospects instead of maybe just sending one scout. Scott Campbell will be able to go with Kyle Smith, and he'll be able to get down to some places and see guys. He feels like more sets of eyes will be a good thing. So we'll see how that strategy works. I feel like Scott Campbell is the best talent evaluator in the building. So I'm hoping he still has a strong voice.
Yeah.
From all reports, Scott Campbell is very much in favor of this move. Maybe he gets a raise, maybe he gets a little better schedule. Maybe there was a lot there to make him want to do this.
Yeah.
Because when the information first started trickling in, Williams, had his position, and Eric Schaefer, and then Kyle Williams, and I was thinking, Kyle Smith, and I was like, whoa, where's Campbell? Where's Campbell in all this? And then it came out a little bit later he was going to be sliding to the personnel executive role. So for a little bit there, I was scared he was out. But hopefully his voice will still carry a good amount of weight. And I think it's a workable listen, we're dysfunctional.
Yeah.
We're dysfunctional. You got to try to find a way to work inside of that. And I feel like at least 2 days out, I don't hate what they've done.
Yeah.
But I can't sit here I cannot sit here and tell you that we're going to the Super Bowl in 2 years.
Yeah, sure.
I can't tell you that I feel like I did when they hired Scott McLuhan.
Right.
But I think for where we're at, this is probably the best case scenario to play.
Well, and it also kind of quiets the noise as well. For months now, Redskins new GM, front office, what's going to happen? And now at least you have. I don't know if we can definitively say that they have stability, but at least it's a start. It's a start.
Well, again, like I said, I think Doug has tried to structure this in a way that will give some stability, and we'll see if that holds up.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate a man in a place of power with a big ego. They can be a wrecking ball, and that's what Bruce Allen is.
He's the Frank Underwood of team presidents, or whatever he is.
And the other thing is, they were asking Williams, was he going to get involved in the Kirk Cousins negotiations, and he said no. That he's not going to stick his nose in this late in the game, and that let you know that this is still Bruce's show. That's Bruce's baby.
Yeah.
And Eric Schaefer, they were talking to him about it, and he was saying they're trying to put deals together. And somebody, I think Grant and Danny asked him, they said, well, last year's deal, it didn't even seem to, make Cousins blink. They didn't seem to break a sweat over y'all's offer. And Schaefer said, well, the money we're offering him now, he should break a sweat. So maybe they've come up a good bit.
Yeah.
But Kirk Cousins was asked about it, and he said, hey, I like Schaefer. I think he's a good guy. But there are guys above Schaefer that...
Ooh.
So this is not Schaefer's... This isn't his whole show, folks. Do not make the mistake that just because he's been...
Subtle little jab there by Mr. You Like That.
In other words, Schaefer is pushing the grocery cart, but he's been told how much he can spend.
Yeah.
He's been told, look, Eric, structure it however you want, but this is the money you're playing with.
It better be like this, yeah.
This is the money. We're not going any higher. This is what you got. So this isn't Eric Schaefer's call.
Yeah.
And that's why I still think there won't be a deal by July 15th. I think as long as Bruce Allen is living in his little delusion that somehow they'll click on a right number and Cousins will come running through the door like a puppy. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Well, and Cousins is a lot smarter than that, too. You know, I think
Listen,
Cousins has played this thing so artfully. I think he's just...
He has at every turn, he is maximizing his earning power while simultaneously watching the Redskins paint themselves into a very bad corner.
Yeah.
That's what this whole thing has been about.
Yeah.
He's just, every turn he's had the leverage at every turn.
Yeah.
And the Redskins have tried to fight out of that bag, but not happening.
Nope.
Not happening. But
Kirk's too smart for that.
but again, it lays to rest all the questions, like you said.
Yeah,
what would it be like? You know, everybody was talking about, was there going to be a Mike Mayock appearance in Redskin Park and all this stuff? And, you know, in a lot of ways, what happened yesterday at 9 o'clock in the morning is what we thought would happen, and that is an internal rebuild.
And we let him off the hook. I just wanted to do that.
Yeah, but I think that's all I need to say about that. It's on to Jay Gruden let him out of OTAs one day early,
and that's the next thing I was going to say. It finally quiets this discussion, and now we can look at the Redskins and we can finally talk about OTAs, minicamp, training camp, without having to. It quiets that noise a little bit. Let's focus on the field. Let's focus on the draft. The draftees. Let's get to work.
Yeah, and they've signed all their draft picks, and we'll see what happens in a month with Cousins. But it's on to September.
On to September. Oh yes, that reminded me. The Steelers signed all their draft picks as well. T.J. Watt got signed today, as a matter of fact. Cameron Sutton, our third-round pick, was signed yesterday, so that does it for us. All of our draft picks are signed, so that kind of kills that little story too. Chris, I think that's all I've got, buddy.
That's all I got, pal.
Okay, one thing I will say here before we go, Chris and I are very excited about something we're going to start, I believe, next week and just kind of over the next consecutive weeks. We are going to start a series here on the Steelskins Show, kind of just for the off-season until we get to the regular season. We want to be very clear and upfront. This is not going to be a 53-man roster projection per se, but what we're going to do is each week, Chris and I are going to take a position group, defensive backs, linebackers, defensive linemen, offensive linemen. What we're going to do is we're going to look at who we have at the moment, and we're just going to say, all right, this guy, he's on the bubble. This guy's safe. No way this guy loses his job. This guy's going to have to ball out in training camp. This guy's going to have to ball out in preseason to keep his job, that kind of thing. The other thing we'll do is, while we're doing that, simultaneously, we can kind of wrap into that because of our draft picks, who is safe and who is not. That kind of thing. Or because a team did not draft at this position, does this mean that they are comfortable with who they have at that position at the moment? That type of thing. It'll just be kind of a thorough roster evaluation.
We've got 6 weeks between now and the start of training camp. So
so this will give us plenty of time.
You and I talked about we want to try to stage it to where we wrap up, right before training camp. And it gives us a chance to tell you who we think heading into training camp are the 53.
Yeah, right.
But it'll be a little better because we're not just throwing our 53 out there.
We're doing a little more just kind of analyzing each guy, looking at them, what they could be.
And stuff like this is fun because this is where you get people interacting with you.
Yeah. Not to mention for the next month, man, it's just good luck finding something.
It's dead, and you and I talked. This was a good way to just kind of segue into the training camp period, and
and if we have to make changes, as training camp goes on, maybe a guy gets injured, maybe a guy's doing terrible, and then we can kind of edit our list from there.
Sure, it's not gonna our 53 we think going into training camp won't be the 53 coming out.
Right.
It just won't, but I think it'll be fun to kind of say, hey, I got 40 right out of the 53 or 45 out of the 53, and people can get at us and say, nice job, idiots.
Or we do so well that they just have to keep subscribing.
And we get a telephone call saying, please come join our front office.
Do you want to join the Redskins front office? I would tell you not to take
I would do that.
Even if it was just for 2 days.
Oh, I would join it in a heartbeat. I would join the dysfunction.
You would plaque the letter of the firing letter. Yeah.
Oh, my worst day at Redskin Park would be better than my best day at work.
Yeah.
Here. I would gladly. I'd go up there, just pour coffee.
Just pour coffee, get fired the next day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Dear Chris,
awesome.
I like medium roast. You gave me dark roast.
You gave me dark. You're outta
Sincerely,
here.
Bruce Allen. Yeah. One thing before we go very, very quickly, I want to thank all of you for the reception on YouTube. Chris, I got to be very honest. Show is doing a little better than I thought on our YouTube channel. We all the videos we put up have been well received. They've been getting views. The views get bigger each day. People have been responding in the comments. Now everybody's playing with fidget spinners. Wow, what a world we live in. It used to be skating, and now it's fidget spinners.
Well, they have barons. They have skate barons in here.
Oh.
They have skate barons.
So do you think really what this was is like the old guys who like couldn't skate anymore were like, well, we can't do that, but we can make a toy that spins.
Yeah.
So you think in a lot of ways, you think the guy who made that was just an ex-skater?
Maybe. I mean, it's all about the ball bearings. I mean, this is probably a 7-ball bearing unit. Powell makes some ceramic ball bearings that I guarantee you, if you stuck that in a fidget spinner, it would catch fire.
Well, your son over there is an interesting chap. He was talking to me yesterday, and I didn't know people got this advanced with fidget spinning. He was telling me how like you can put like olive oil or like WD-40 inside there and like help him spin better.
Oh no, he soaked. See, we bought him. He made some fidget.
That's
fidget
right.
spinners.
Yeah.
So we went to Flowland and bought. I think they're rush bearings, but anyway, there's 7 balls in there. They weren't spinning that great because there's a lot of grease. So Chet threw them in there with the Palm Olive or Dove or whatever. That ate the grease away, and now those bad boys spin like a champ.
Whoa!
But
you should patent that, bro.
For $65, I mean, the ones we bought were like $13. You got 7 of them. But Powell makes some ceramic ball bearings that about $65 a box.
Jeez.
That I'm sure.
Probably work. I would hope for 65.
Probably like a 5-minute spin.
Yeah. Now mine, the one that you're spinning right now, I timed at work the other day. 2 minutes and 38 seconds, which I thought was solid.
Off one spin?
Yeah. Which was solid. I thought was solid. Now, because I have used it like crazy, it probably doesn't spin as good. Minute and a half to 2. So I broke.
The first one, the one I got from Michael's was like 2.5, 3.
You know, that thing was heavy. I mean, that thing had some weight to it. It would spin.
There weren't like more ball bearings on the side. There were legitimate weights.
Yeah, see, I've noticed that the heavier fidget spinners are the ones that tend to spin a little bit better.
But the center ate out quicker on that one with the bearing.
Yeah, it fell out.
It began to wall out.
It just fall down your finger.
Wow.
Isn't it amazing what you learn on this podcast?
Yes, we'll talk about football, and you'll get a lesson about skating and fidget spinners.
Dude,
Sponsorships.
We're like a grocery store.
Why don't we have sponsorships yet? I don't know. I ask myself that question every day. I don't get it. We should by now.
That's the first thing I ask when I wake up.
Like I said, guys, thank you very much for the reception on YouTube. Keep the views coming. Keep the subscriptions coming. Keep the comments going as well. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, we don't mind negative comments.
No. Hate on us, please.
Bring it.
Yeah, let's go. And I try to comment back as much as I possibly can. But yes, keep commenting. Keep subscribing. YouTube.com/Steelskin Show. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at Steelskin Show. You can like the show on Facebook, Facebook.com/Steelskin Show. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at P_Garrison. He is at CGLSKSC. iTunes. Go subscribe on iTunes. Make sure you rate if you're listening on iTunes. That's really going to help us out. Very important. Please rate if you can. That's all I got for you tonight. Chris, I'm going to end this podcast so I can go play with my fidget spinner. Maybe play a little PS4 Pro. A little 4K action. Life's good. What a time to be alive. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Touchdown, Pittsburgh! Touchdown, Washington!